Let me be honest with you. Most people spend their entire lives waiting. They wait for clarity. They wait for the perfect moment. They wait to feel confident, motivated, inspired. And the brutal truth is that feeling almost never comes. Not consistently, not when you need it, not when it counts. In this video, I'm going to show you how to take action when every part of you wants to hesitate, how to move forward without needing to feel ready, and more importantly, how to build the kind of mental toughness that separates those who live with purpose from those who die with regret. Because if you only execute when it's convenient, when it's exciting, when it's easy, you will never achieve anything truly meaningful in your life. Greatness doesn't wait for perfect timing. It demands that you act anyway. You see, I've been teaching people for decades, from CEOs to young entrepreneurs, from overwhelmed employees to world-class leaders, and the pattern is always the same. The ones who win are not the ones with the most talent. They're not even the smartest. They're the ones who can act when they're afraid, who can execute through doubt, who don't need their emotions to give them permission to move. I'm not here to inspire you. I'm here to give you a system, a structure for turning hesitation into execution. Because success is not about intensity, it's about consistency. And if you want consistency, you need to stop negotiating with your feelings. Let's talk about where this begins, your mind. The first enemy of execution is the illusion that you need to feel a certain way before you act. You think, when I feel more confident, I'll start the business. When I feel more organized, I'll take control of my schedule. When I feel more focused, I'll finally write the book. No, it doesn't work that way. Confidence doesn't come before action. It comes from action. You don't get more clarity by thinking. You get more clarity by moving. When you act, even imperfectly, you generate feedback. That feedback becomes direction, and direction gives you confidence. The second enemy, perfectionism. That little voice that tells you it's not the right time, that you don't know enough yet, that you need one more course, one more video, one more conversation before you begin. Let me tell you something. Perfectionism is just fear in a suit and tie. It dresses up like preparation. It pretends to be wisdom. But what it really does is paralyze you. It convinces you that execution is unsafe, that mistakes are fatal, that now is never good enough. I've seen more brilliant ideas die in notebooks than in the real world, not because they weren't good, but because someone was waiting to feel ready. If you want to live a powerful life, you must break this cycle. You must train yourself, and yes, it is a trained skill, to act before you feel ready. To condition your nervous system to move forward even when your mind is trying to hold you back. And let me be clear, this is not about ignoring fear or pretending it's not there. It's about respecting fear without letting it lead. It's about acknowledging that discomfort is part of the process and choosing to proceed anyway. Think of the people you admire most, the ones who built something meaningful, the ones who became world-class. Do you really believe they always felt ready? Do you think they never had doubts, that they never woke up tired, distracted, uncertain? Of course they did. The difference is they moved anyway. They understood that execution isn't something you wait for, it's something you command. In a few moments, I'll walk you through exactly how to build this discipline, step by step. We'll rewire your habits. We'll set new triggers. We'll eliminate your dependence on feelings. And we'll create a version of you who doesn't just dream, you deliver. But first, you need to make one decision. You will no longer let your emotions decide your future. You will act, not later, not someday, now. Because if you can master this, you'll never be at the mercy of hesitation again. If you want to achieve anything extraordinary, you need to understand something most people never learn. Successful people don't act because they feel ready. They act because they've built a standard. You don't show up because you're in the mood. You show up because that's who you are now. I want you to think about that carefully. When was the last time you skipped something important because you weren't feeling it? How many hours have you wasted negotiating with yourself over things that were already on your schedule? How many opportunities have slipped through your fingers? Not because you weren't capable, but because you were waiting for your feelings to cooperate. Let me ask you, what would happen if a surgeon told you, I don't feel like operating today? What if your pilot paused before takeoff and said, I just don't feel ready for this flight? You'd panic. You'd lose all confidence. Why? Because you understand in their world emotion doesn't lead. Execution does. Now imagine living your life with that same level of internal discipline. Imagine what would change if your identity became rooted in action, not mood. Because here's a truth I've learned after decades of studying high performers across industries, cultures, and backgrounds. The most successful people in the world execute through discomfort. They don't need hype. They don't need inspiration. They have trained themselves to show up, especially when it's hard. You can build this too, but it doesn't come from wishing. It comes from commitment to a personal standard that is non-negotiable. That means setting boundaries around your behavior. That means choosing the version of you who gets things done and eliminating the option of delay. Start small. Let's say you decide to wake up at 6 a.m. If that's your standard, you don't negotiate with the snooze button. You get up, even if you only slept 5 hours, even if it's cold, even if no one's watching. You execute. Why? Because the moment you compromise with your standard, you teach your brain that it's optional. And once it's optional, it's dead. Discipline is not rigidness. It's self-respect in action. It's saying to yourself, my future matters more than my feelings right now. I want you to picture something. Imagine you had a camera crew following you every day, filming every action, every word, every decision, and at the end of the month, that footage was going to be shown to millions of people. Would you move differently? Would you push harder? Would you follow through even when tired? Now here's the shift. You're already being watched by the most important person in your life, you. Your subconscious is watching everything you do, every skipped task, every excuse, every lie you tell yourself, and it's recording all of it. Not to punish you, but to form an identity. That identity becomes your default, your autopilot, your reputation with yourself. And once your subconscious believes that you're someone who always finishes what they start, it stops resisting. It stops hesitating. It begins to follow the new pattern. It begins to trust you. That's when execution becomes easier. Not because the tasks are easier, but because you've removed the decision fatigue. You don't think about whether or not you'll act, you just do. So here's what I want you to commit to from now on. You will build an identity that follows through, regardless of how you feel. You will stop needing perfect conditions. You will stop waiting for permission. You will stop explaining yourself to your doubts. And you will start acting, not like the person you used to be, but like the person you are becoming. This isn't a motivational high, it's a declaration. You execute because you said you would. And in time, that becomes enough. There's a phrase I've said on stages for decades. Winners do what needs to be done, whether they feel like it or not. And most people nod their heads when they hear that. They agree with it in theory, but few actually live it in practice. Why? Because doing what needs to be done is rarely comfortable. It's rarely exciting and almost never convenient. But it is the foundation of a high-performance life. Let me show you what separates the people who finish things from those who keep restarting their lives over and over again. A simple rule: do it now. That phrase changed my entire trajectory. Do it now. Don't think about it. Don't plan it to death. Don't wait until the mood strikes. Just do it. I used to be just like most people. I'd make lists. I'd imagine success. I'd get excited, and then I'd stall. I'd wait. I'd hesitate. I'd distract myself. I thought I was just not ready. What I learned painfully is that procrastination doesn't protect your energy. It drains it. The longer you delay a task, the heavier it becomes. And the worst part? You start building a reputation with yourself that you can't be trusted. That's the real cost of inaction. Not just the missed opportunity, but the erosion of self-trust. The only way to reverse that is to take action immediately, the moment you know what needs to be done. Not because you're ready, not because you're confident, but because it's the next right move. I want you to understand this at a cellular level. Execution is the cure to almost everything. If you're overwhelmed, execute. If you're anxious, execute. If you're unsure, execute anyway and gather feedback. Most people live in paralysis by analysis. They want certainty before they act, but real clarity comes after you move, not before. I've coached executives who were stuck in planning mode for years, brilliant people with incredible ideas. But nothing changed until they decided to move without the feeling of readiness. And once they did, momentum carried them where motivation never could. Let me give you something practical right now, a simple system I've taught around the world. I call it the 72-hour rule. If you don't take action on a new goal or idea within 72 hours, the odds of you doing anything about it drop to almost zero. So from now on, make this a rule. If you have a goal, a task, a shift, an idea, you must take action within 3 days. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be visible to others. But you must move, because every action you take tells your mind, I am serious about this. And every time you hesitate, you send the opposite message. This doesn't really matter. You train your subconscious by what you tolerate. Let's lock this in. From this point forward, you will no longer delay action based on mood. You will operate by commitment, not emotion. You will follow through on the small things so you can build capacity for the big things. This isn't about force. It's about freedom. Because when you stop needing to feel ready, you finally become unstoppable. One of the greatest lies that's ever been sold to ambitious people like you is this: you need to feel ready to take action. I can tell you from decades of real experience, nothing will slow you down more than waiting for the right mood, the right mindset, the right energy. It sounds reasonable, logical even, but it's a trap. And if you're not careful, it'll steal decades from you, quietly without resistance, with your full permission. The truth is this: emotion follows action, not the other way around. You don't feel motivated and then act. You act, and that action triggers motivation. You don't wait to be confident to start something. You start, and confidence grows as you gain momentum. And you don't wait to feel powerful to do powerful things. You do powerful things first, and over time, the feelings will catch up to your behavior. If I had waited to feel ready before taking the stage, I never would have spoken to my first audience. If I had waited to feel qualified, I never would have written my first book. If I had waited for life to hand me clarity, I never would have built the life I live today. But I acted anyway. I moved forward, not because I had the perfect mindset, but because I had standards. Let me tell you something few people are willing to admit. You don't need to feel good to take control of your life. You just need to stop waiting for your feelings to validate what you already know you need to do. You see, most people live backwards. They wait to feel ready. They wait for clarity. They wait until things settle down. And then they wonder why they're in the same place year after year, smarter, older, but no closer to their goals. But successful people, they've learned a different rhythm, a different rule. They execute through the fog. They move while they're still scared. They take the meeting while their hands are shaking. They press publish even when their voice is shaking. They understand something the average person never fully accepts. Doing creates feeling. If you want more confidence, take action. If you want more momentum, start. If you want to feel powerful, do something powerful right now. I'm not telling you this to sound inspirational. This is neuroscience. Your brain rewards action. Every time you take a step forward, even a small one, your mind releases chemicals: dopamine, adrenaline, serotonin. They tell your system you're moving, you're alive, keep going. But when you sit in hesitation, when you scroll instead of start, when you rehearse all the reasons you're not ready, your brain learns something else. This goal is dangerous. We should avoid it. That's why procrastination gets heavier the longer it lingers. You think time is giving you space to prepare, but really time is giving fear space to grow. This is why I teach people to develop what I call a bias for action. That means when you feel unsure, act. When you're stuck in your head, act. When it would be easier to delay, act anyway. Not recklessly, not without strategy, but with urgency, with decisiveness, with clarity that comes from movement, not overthinking. Because let me tell you something I've seen again and again in my coaching and teaching. The fastest way to build self-belief is to keep promises to yourself, even when you don't feel like it. So here's what I want you to understand on a deeper level. Every time you push through the discomfort of action, you cast a vote for the person you're becoming. And your identity? It's nothing more than the accumulation of those votes. You don't become disciplined by reading about discipline. You don't become decisive by watching someone else do it. You become those things by moving before you feel like you can, and doing it again and again and again. Some days you'll feel doubt. Some days you'll feel empty. Some days your own brain will try to convince you to pull back. And it's exactly on those days that your future is being formed. Not in the easy days, but in the inconvenient, unsexy, lonely ones. So from this moment forward, I want you to adopt a new standard. I act before I feel ready. That becomes your baseline, your personal code, your daily practice. And once you do that consistently enough, something extraordinary happens. You start to realize the old version of you, the hesitant one, the overthinker, the avoider, is gone. Not because you waited for change, but because you created it. There's something I need you to understand if you're serious about changing your life. You cannot become someone new while continuing to behave like the old version of yourself. That's the brutal truth. And most people spend years, even decades, avoiding it. They read books, watch videos, talk about growth, but their behavior doesn't change. Their decisions don't evolve. They keep moving like the same version of themselves they say they're trying to outgrow. It doesn't matter what you believe about yourself if your behavior is still broadcasting the opposite. You can tell yourself you're disciplined, but if you keep breaking promises to yourself, your subconscious knows you're not. You can say you want success, but if you keep avoiding discomfort, your body knows you're not ready to handle it. This is why so many people stay stuck, even while consuming great information. Because information alone doesn't create identity. Action does. I want you to imagine this. There's a version of you who's already successful, already focused, already earning the income you dream of, already living with precision, purpose, and power. That version of you already exists. But it's not buried in books. It's not locked behind some secret. It's hidden in your next choice. Let me repeat that. The version of you you're chasing is revealed by the decisions you make today. You want to be someone who leads with confidence? Then speak like it. Today, you want to be someone who builds wealth? Then manage your money like someone who already has it. Today, you want to be someone who executes no matter what? Then stop delaying. Today, your habits either reinforce your old identity or they build your new one. There is no neutral. This is why I've always told my students, act like the person you want to become until you don't have to act anymore. You rehearse it. You show up with posture before you feel powerful. You wake up early before it feels natural. You stay focused while your mind begs to escape. You move with structure while your emotions crave chaos. At first it's uncomfortable. It feels fake. You'll tell yourself it's forced. But eventually, it becomes you. Because repetition is stronger than belief. You don't believe your way into change. You behave your way into belief. Let that sink in. I remember years ago I had a client, incredibly intelligent, full of potential, but paralyzed by doubt. He was always saying, once I feel more confident, I'll start my business. Once I feel like I'm good enough, I'll put my ideas out there. But week after week, month after month, nothing changed. So I told him, stop trying to become someone new. Just decide who you want to be and start acting like it today. That single shift changed everything. He stopped waiting for validation. He stopped overthinking. He started behaving like someone who had already built a business. And as a result, the business followed. Because results don't follow intention, they follow alignment. Let me give you something practical now. Each morning before your day begins, ask yourself one question. How would the best version of me move today? Not next year. Not after success. Right now. Then do your best to match that version. In the way you speak, sit, walk, eat, decide, and follow through. It won't be perfect. That's okay. But each day you get closer. Each action strengthens the signal. Each repetition reprograms the system. Eventually you look back and realize you're no longer faking it. You're just being it. And that's how transformation actually happens. Not with one big change, but through thousands of tiny decisions made like someone who has already arrived. Here's something I've seen destroy more potential than failure ever could. Emotional dependence. The habit of waiting until you feel right before taking action. The addiction to only moving when you're inspired. The belief that your emotions have to align before you can show up strong. If you keep living like that, you'll never build anything meaningful. Because let me be honest with you, the bigger your dreams, the more pressure you'll face. And when pressure comes, your emotions won't always cooperate. Fear will show up. Doubt will whisper. Anxiety will cloud your thinking. And if you haven't trained yourself to act despite those feelings, they will own you. Either you control your emotions or your emotions control your execution. It's not about suppressing emotion. I'm not asking you to become cold, robotic, or detached from your humanity. I'm asking you to master your internal state so that your emotions don't derail your goals. The average person spends their life reacting. Reacting to tiredness, reacting to bad news, reacting to moods, triggers, outside circumstances. Their life is dictated by how they feel, not by what they've committed to. But the few who rise, the ones you respect, admire, and want to emulate, they have a different operating system. They feel fear and act anyway. They feel resistance and lean in. They feel overwhelmed and keep going. Not because they're superhuman, but because they made a decision. My goals are bigger than my feelings. That's the shift. And once you make it, you never go back. Let me give you a practical tool I've used for decades. I call it the mental pause. When a negative emotion arises, procrastination, frustration, hesitation, I pause just for a few seconds. And I ask one question. Is this emotion helping me move forward or holding me back? If it's helpful, I listen. If it's not, I override it, not with willpower, but with awareness. Because once you separate yourself from your state, you gain control. You are not your tiredness. You are not your doubt. You are not your fear. You are the person who chooses what happens next. That's real power. I had to learn this early in my career. When I first started speaking, I would get waves of anxiety before walking on stage. Every voice in my head told me, you're not ready. You don't belong here. What if you fail? If I had listened to those voices, I would have never spoken a word. But I learned to treat emotions like weather. They come and go, but I don't have to let them dictate my day. And once I stopped waiting for calm and started executing through the chaos, everything changed. My confidence wasn't born from avoiding fear. It was built by acting in spite of it. That's the foundation of emotional self-leadership. Not the absence of feeling, but the refusal to let feeling become an excuse. From this point on, I want you to lead with standards, not states. If your standard is to execute daily, you do it, whether you're excited or exhausted. If your standard is to protect your energy, you do it, even when someone tries to pull you into drama. If your standard is to take action without delay, you move, even when resistance screams at you to wait. Emotions are messengers, not commanders. You can honor them without obeying them. You can acknowledge them without allowing them to sabotage your future. And the more often you act while feeling the opposite, the faster you become emotionally unshakable. Because in the end, the most dangerous person in the room is the one who can stay in control while everyone else is controlled by their feelings. At this point, you already know the truth. Execution is not something you do when it's easy. It's something you do because it's who you are. But let me take you one step deeper. If you want this shift to last, not just for a few days or weeks, but for the rest of your life, you must turn execution into habit, not a choice, not a decision, a default. You see, most people operate from emotion, as we talked about, but even those who understand the importance of discipline still fall short because they rely on willpower instead of systems. Let me be clear. Willpower is a terrible long-term strategy. It fades, it burns out, it disappears when life gets busy, stressful, or uncertain. But habits save you when your motivation is gone. Habits carry you when you're tired. Habits keep you moving when the path isn't clear. And the way you build habits is simple, but not easy. You repeat behavior until it becomes identity. When I started working in business, I wasn't the most talented. I didn't have connections. I didn't have money. But I had one thing, the ability to out-execute anyone around me. Not because I was smarter, but because I turned execution into a routine. Every morning I began the same way, review my goals, set the top 3 priorities, and then, most importantly, take immediate action on the first one. No thinking, no debating, just start, even if I didn't know the full answer, even if I wasn't sure it would work, even if I was scared out of my mind. And the more I did this, the easier it became. Not because life got easier, but because I got harder to stop. You must become that person. Not the most talented, but the most consistent. Not the loudest, but the most reliable. Not the one who tries, the one who executes. Here's a powerful exercise I've taught to thousands of high performers. It's called the first 30-minute rule. Whatever your most important task is for the day, you begin it within the first 30 minutes of waking up. No distractions, no checking messages, no long rituals. You wake up and you attack. Why? Because the way you begin your day sets the tone for everything else. Start reactive, and you spend the day in defense. Start on purpose, and you stay in control. This one habit, when done consistently, will make you unstoppable because it teaches your brain a simple truth. I move first. I move fast. I don't wait. And once your subconscious starts believing that, your old identity doesn't stand a chance. Now I know what you might be thinking. But Brian, what if I mess up? What if I miss a day? What if I fall off? You will. You're human. But here's the difference between average performers and elite ones. Elite performers recover fast. They don't spiral. They don't make excuses. They don't throw the plan away. They simply reset, recenter, and return to the habit. You don't fail when you fall. You fail when you stop getting up. And that's the secret no one wants to hear. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be relentless. Every time you choose to execute instead of delay, you're casting a vote. Every time you move without motivation, another vote. Every time you keep going when you could have quit, another vote. Eventually those votes pile up. They become your new story, your new standard, your new reality. And people will look at you and say, how do you stay so disciplined? How do you always get things done? And you'll smile because you'll know the truth. You trained for this. You didn't wait to feel ready. You forced yourself to execute until it no longer felt forced. Let me leave you with something I know to be absolutely true. Something that has never failed me and never failed anyone who has truly committed to mastery. You don't rise to the level of your dreams. You fall to the level of your habits. And your habits are built on what you do when you don't feel like doing anything. The life you want, the freedom you crave, the power you admire in others, it's not locked away behind luck or talent. It's built on a foundation of execution when it's hard, when it's boring, when it's uncertain, when your entire body says not now, and you act anyway. That's when the shift happens. That's when the old version of you, the overthinker, the procrastinator, the person you've quietly been ashamed of, begins to fade. Not all at once, but in pieces. With every step forward, every early morning, every decision made through resistance. I want you to hear me clearly. You don't need another plan. You don't need more time. You don't need to get your life together before you begin. You just need to start. Right now, right here. with whatever you have in the condition you're in. Because this version of you, the one you're living in today, has already proven what you get when you wait. Now it's time to see what happens when you move. Move before you're ready. Move before you feel perfect. Move when it's awkward. Move when it's uncomfortable. And do it consistently. That's how you rewire your nervous system. That's how you build self-trust. That's how you shift from potential to power. You don't need to feel like a millionaire to start acting like one. You don't need to feel like a disciplined person to behave like one. You don't need to feel confident to make confident decisions. Those feelings will follow. They always do. But only if you move first. Identity follows behavior, not the other way around. So from this day forward, make yourself a promise. You will not sit in hesitation anymore. You will not wait for clarity. You will not beg your feelings for permission. You will act daily, deliberately, relentlessly, even if you're scared, even if no one believes in you yet, even if you don't see the results right away, because you've made the internal shift. You no longer wait for execution to feel right. You execute until it becomes who you are. And when that shift is complete, you'll look back and realize you were never missing potential. You were just missing movement. Now you've got both. So go move before you feel ready. Because ready is not a feeling. Ready is a decision.